Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Guys Who Stare at Stats. I'm Cade Kennedy alongside Andrew Santangelo. Connor Gray will join us at some point. We do not know when, but we do know he should be here at some point tonight. But Andrew, we have a lot to get here today. We have some baseball news. We have some football news. We have way more football coverage than you'd ever expect on a Tuesday, but that's how this works sometimes. So, the most important question of the day, we do every episode. Andrew, how's everything going for you today?
Pretty good, as you know, when I came in here. Running around a little bit here in the back half of the afternoon, but always good stuff. But, thanks for letting me catch my breath for a little bit. But, no, I'm doing well. It's another good week. A lot of stuff to dive into. Very exciting. Everything's going well. What about you?
Everything is going well here. We've got classes going on. It's hard to think. We're 2 weeks to fall break. We're so close.
I heard this is week 7 or 8?
Week 7.
I can't believe it already.
Barreling down on fall break. If you don't count this week, we got 2 more weeks to get to. My goodness, I think we all need that break. It just feels like once we get to mid-September, it's like, all right, fall break, can't be here soon enough. One day.
Yeah, exactly, not wrong.
But we have some other things to get to. The main one being that the Pro Bowl is officially over. It had a good run, but when everyone treats it as a joke, no one watches it. Everyone sees it as a glorified flag football game pretty much, or, two-touch or something. No one wanted to get injured, of course. We might as well just make it a flag football game, and that's exactly what the NFL's going to do. Partnering with Peyton Manning's Omaha Productions, we're now going to get the Pro Bowl games with a more skills competition-based sort of thing. So like NBA All-Star Weekend, but without the All-Star game, basically.
Yeah, I got a couple of views on it. First, the Pro Bowl took a big hit when they moved it the week before the Super Bowl because obviously then a lot of your All-Stars aren't even playing because obviously I'm not risking getting hurt before the Super Bowl. So that was the biggest issue when it really started to take a turn and a big downfall. Obviously you have a lot of sports take a break, do it halfway in the year, or, Pro Bowl could do it after the Super Bowl, one last week. I get you want to end on the Super Bowl, but that's another option. Is you can do it at the end of the year because I really don't think I think it's a really cool idea. I think it's going to go well. Its skills competitions are going to be more fun. I mean, how many times do we sit and talk about the dunk contest or the 3-point contest more than the actual All-Star game itself? I mean, a lot of the times, depending on how good the dunk contest is that year. Obviously, hockey turned and they did skills competition the last few years. That's gone extremely well. So I think NFL's kind of taking hand in that as well now here, and you'll see throughout that week. But what's going to be interesting to see, I don't know if they put a timeline on it yet, but if they keep it before the Super Bowl, you're still going to have a lot of those guys, I think, still sit out, obviously, getting ready for that. So I think that's a big factor in this as well. Is I would like to see them kind of figure out a way to include some of those Super Bowl players.
Yeah, and the date officially is February 5th for this year in Las Vegas. And to your point, Andrew, some of these events I'm excited to see, like you mentioned, the home run derby, the dunk contest, the 3-point contest. All of those sometimes are more fun or more important than the game itself.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, especially in football when the players aren't trying as hard. I understand. I wouldn't want to have a season-ending injury in a game that doesn't really mean anything that you're paying for maybe 1% of your salary to do. So I think this will be a good thing. I'm excited to see what they do. I would love to see what hockey does if they make it like a divisional matchups, like if they did a 7-on-7 day or something like that where the NFC West plays the AFC West or something like that, and you have all the divisions play each other and do like a little mini who's the best division or something like that. And maybe, I don't know, you could make that the home team for the Super Bowl or something. Oh, if an NFC team wins, they get the home field advantage technically, kind of like baseball used to do.
Should do.
And should do.
Still mad about that. But no, yeah, I think there's a couple options. I think the skills competition could be fun. I hope they're creative with it. I'm going to take off on here the Eagles offensive lineman. I don't know if you ever heard from Jason Kelsey, but he was kind of tweeting about it, and he was having fun with it. He's like, this is a great idea, whatever. This is from a player's standpoint, a great idea. Obviously, Pro Bowl has been taking a hit, so this is a good change up and stuff. And he will, as on top of actual football skills, he's like, I think it'd be fun to have other skill competitions too. Like, let's get a hot dog eating contest. Or, it's an offensive lineman saying it, so I'm sure maybe the wide receivers aren't as high on that, but no, as a lineman, he's like, let's get some hot dog eating contests and like some of the fun stuff too. I think that'd be fun too if you kind of go creative too beyond just like physical football standard skills.
I think so. I think that'd be a lot of fun to see, but we're talking Eagles offensive line. You got to talk about the most important one around it. That's Lane Johnson. Come on.
Hey, I love Lane Johnson.
I know.
He's not tweeting about the hot dog.
I know, but hey, maybe he'll show up too. You never know. But the next story we have, baseball story, Andrew. We were 1 day off. You said Cardinals would clinch it. They'd play in about 40 minutes to try to get one step closer. I think I saw the magic number was 3, but I can't remember if that was this morning or yesterday.
It's 2.
If it's down to 2 at this point, then the Cardinals win. They clinch today. But, of course, we talked about the reality of Albert Pujols hitting 700. He hits it the day after we go off the air. I was on the road, just got to the hotel, and I got a notification on my phone that Albert Pujols had hit home run number 699. I said, that's pretty nice. And by the time I turned around, oh, hey, there's number 700. Hey, it happened. I was just like, wait, hold up. What? What do you mean we're beating the Dodgers 8-0? That doesn't happen. But Pujols hitting number 700, the 4th player to ever do it. Now we got to get Aaron Judge to hit another one. He's at 60 right now, just sitting there. We got to see if he gets his number 61. So record year in baseball with a whole lot of big achievements going on.
Yeah, it's great to see. And here's the thing: is the likable players too. Obviously, Albert Pujols, a long-time great, 700, great number. Like you, I think I was out. Well, he did it Friday night, right?
Yeah.
So I was at the volleyball match is where I was, and I got I think that first notification came in a little late because I get the notification as well. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll be able to go home, maybe see the end of the game, maybe hit a shot, and then all of a sudden, it's like felt like 5 minutes later you get the message he hit 700. I'm like, how did you do it so quick?
Yeah, I was watching the highlight of 699 only to get my phone. Albert Pujols home run, and I was just like, yeah, that already happened. What are you talking about? Oh, hey, the score. Oh, my goodness, that was number 700. Oh, my gosh. But it was such a fun moment to see, especially the Dodgers fans cheering as well with Pujols playing for the Dodgers last year. Just a fun baseball moment. Doesn't even have to be, my team versus your team. Everyone's celebrating it. Even division rivals are celebrating. It's just a fun part of the game.
Yeah, no, without question. And same thing with Judge here. Hopefully another good, likable guy. Obviously, he's been big with the game since coming up. He obviously had some injury history, but this year really having an MVP level year. Pretty much leads the AL in every single hitting statistic that he can. And I'll tell you what, though, he's starting to slow down a little bit, and I definitely think he'll still tie it. But my question is, at what point, and obviously he's good enough to hit 2 in one game, but at what point are we sitting here like, you know what, he actually might, because when he hit 60, I was like, okay, he's got it locked. He's going to at least get 60. He needs 2 more in 18, 19 games or whatever it was. Now we're sitting here 9 games later. I think they got 9 or 10 left. I forget what the Yankees have, but he hasn't got. So now it's like, okay, at what point are we sitting here like, okay, he's going to definitely tie it, but maybe he won't break it at this point.
My dream would be if there's another series with the Red Sox, that the Red Sox do the ultimate petty thing and intentionally walk him every time. That would be the most petty thing I could think of in a sport, and I would enjoy it. But at the same time, I think everyone wants to see Judge hit it. I saw during college football, people kept breaking into coverage during games to show Aaron Judge at bats and all that, which, was kind of annoying when it's a fourth quarter and it's a competitive game and someone scores and it's like, oh, I'm glad I only got to see that at half the screen normality. Mm-hmm. But I understand the importance of it, too. But I just find it a little interesting tidbit that happened. But moving on to college football, the AP Top 25 came out Sunday, and after the wild weekend, I guess is the best way to put it. We had another crazy weekend. When do we not have a crazy weekend in college football or the NFL? But Georgia staying on top as the number 1 team in the country. No surprise there. They take care of business against Kent State 39-22. Looked a little shaky at times, but Kent State is not as bad as people thought they would be. When you play 3 top 15 teams, essentially, you're going to be battle-tested. So good for the Golden Flashes there. Alabama at number 2. Ohio State is number 3, both getting big dismantling wins over their opponents. Michigan survives Maryland. They're number 4. Clemson, big double OT win at Wake. They're number 5. USC, Kentucky, Tennessee at 6, 7, and 8. OSU staying put at number 9. NC State 10. Penn State up to 11. And then Utah, Oregon, Ole Miss, Washington rounding out the top 15. Moving down to 16, it's Baylor, followed by Texas A&M, making the biggest jump of the entire poll, up to 17. OU, the big drop, all the way down to 18. BYU, 19. Arkansas, another huge drop to 20. And then Minnesota coming in. They were unranked. Now they're here. Wake at 22. Florida State is back in at 23. First time since 2018 the Noles are in the poll. Pitt at 24. And K-State joins the party at number 25, leaving Kansas out. Kansas is the first team out. Not basketball still. They're 4-0, which is just weird to think about. But hey, it's good to see.
Yeah, no, a couple things here. Again, obviously, it's we always dive in here, and yeah, Kansas. I don't know. I thought they might get in, but the problem is Kansas State had a big win, obviously, so they're not gonna. I think that's obviously why got K-State in there. I think obviously with them being the first team out, that was Kansas's spot if Oklahoma took care of business. There's other teams maybe you could talk about throwing in there. Minnesota, obviously with Michigan State dropping out of the rankings last week. How good of a win does that make that Michigan State win look like for them? It was a blowout. So I mean, there's a couple teams you could probably throw Kansas in there instead. However, I mean, hey, it is what it is there at that point. My surprises: Arkansas dropping 10 spots to A&M in a close loss. I don't get that, dropping 10 spots. I mean, maybe you can tell me.
I think the reason is more, this is not about Texas A&M. This is about Texas A&M and Missouri State the last week. You looked bad against an FCS team. Then you come out, have a 14-0 lead, slowly evaporates away, and then you miss like a 40-yard field goal to win the game in the most painful way possible. It doinks off the top of the goalpost, or the top of the upright. And, I mean, it was just a painful way to lose. And I guess that whole Texas A&M, after the App State game, no one really trusted them. They barely moved up when they beat Miami. Miami lost again to Middle Tennessee State. So I think there's like 5 different games that go into this ranking here. Do I like it, though? No. I think Arkansas is a top 15 team. You could put them at 20 after they lose to Bama this week, but they might be out by this point if they lose to Bama.
Well, and my other surprising thing, or my counter to that part on the 14-0 thing, I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong, but the way I look at it is, to me, the 14-0 league gets overblown, because unless obviously time-wise, if it's late in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter, or something like that, but like if you turn that over to other sports, right, you're talking about 14-0. That's 2 possessions.
Yeah.
If your baseball team's blowing a 2-0 lead, even a 3 or 4-0 lead, you're not like sitting there like, oh, how'd you blow that lead? If you're sitting there in basketball, you blow let's go to 6 or 7 points. So that's basically 2 possessions, 2 threes. We're not sitting there like, oh, how do we blow that? So to me, like if you lose a 14-0 lead, to me that's not that big a deal because again, it's only 2 possessions and like, I mean, it's easy as you know what, A&M, let's just say A&M for an example, they kicked off hypothetically, so they score late in the second quarter. Send it into halftime, and then start the third quarter with the ball. There's your 14 points. So, I don't know. To me, blowing a 14-0 lead isn't that big, especially to a ranked team, isn't that big a deal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand it all personally. It's one of those weird things where you never really know why it happens, where it's just, I'm not going to criticize the Warriors if they blew a 4-point lead. I mean, especially in the second quarter of a game. I'm not going to criticize Arkansas that much. We talked about it on the show last week. This is a game that favors offense a little bit more. You knew Max Johnson was going to show up at some point. But also, we welcome Connor Gray to the show. We're talking about the AP poll right now. Already ran through all the teams here. Connor, how are you doing today? And what's your initial take here of the AP polls we had in week 5 or 4 or 5? I don't know. It's Hurricane Week. That's all I know.
I would say that Arkansas dropping 10 spots kind of was like, I figured they would have dropped maybe between 5 or 6 spots, but it was like, I get it. Yeah. A&M lost to App State, and then they didn't really have a good showing against Miami, but they're still ranked. So I really don't think it should have affected Arkansas's ranking as badly. But say OU dropping 12, I would probably have only had them maybe drop 8 spots because I still think K-State was a lot better than what people thought. They just look at Tulane and be like, oh, K-State's not that good. It's like, no, they're good when they actually execute and do what we were all saying it that K-State's a stinky good team. They've always been a stinky good team. So I say overall that's probably been my out of nowhere. And obviously, personally, I probably would have had Kansas over K-State make the top 25, but K-State beat a 6th-ranked Oklahoma, so they get the spot over Kansas. So I was thinking maybe both teams would get in there, but didn't happen.
Yeah, it was like Kansas, no rest for the weary for the Jayhawks. You got to prove it again. You got to beat Iowa State at home this week, get to 5-0, and then pray that, Wake Forest and Florida State even gets played at this point to have one of them lose.
It's not the only game.
Yeah, there is a whole lot of madness that's going to be happening this week. We already got one game moved. We'll get to that maybe tomorrow or some other time. But it is time to officially go into the schedule. Week 4 in the books. What a week it was. We got to start with the number 1 team in the country, Georgia. They're on ESPN Plus. No one knew what was going on, and if you're a Georgia fan, you probably want to keep it that way. 39-22, the Dogs never really in doubt that they were going to win the game. Just one of those, kind of like we saw Kent State do to Oklahoma. You look at this score and go, that doesn't look right. Okay, it's a 2-possession game here in the what's going on, guys? But it's one of those, if you look at the score, it tells an entire different story than if you watch the game. Georgia still is dominant. They just had a bad day.
Yeah.
That happens to everybody.
Yeah, pretty much. Bennett, obviously, he threw an interception. Take away his interception, he played well, but pretty decently well. Not his best game of the year by far, but still, it's not bad. But that interception, not very looking good on that. I mean, you have no touchdowns at all. But overall, it seemed like obviously, if you're just looking at the score, not actually watching the game, I didn't get a chance to watch it, but Kent State pretty much looked like Kent State was just hanging with them. And it's like Kent State, they can do some stuff, but I think Georgia just had one of those off days where they could have, if they were playing their A game, they would have blown them out by probably 50. But it's obviously, I think Georgia, I know like Kirby Smart said after the game, they needed this with Kent State to kind of hey, there's some things we got to fix and we got to play better against a team like Kent State because you're supposed to wallop them, not let them hang with you.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason for Georgia to worry or anybody even to question how good Georgia is. I mean, it's just one little, you call it a hiccup. They won by 17 points.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they're fine. But you know what it was, Cade? I know I brought it up on the show before. It was the curse of the safety. Safety's just bad luck. I mean, I've told you that plenty of times. If you have a safety, it's going to cause bad luck to your team for whatever reason. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah. That's just how it works. Safeties are bad. I would recommend not getting them unless, I don't know, something cool happens.
I mean,
unless you get one in the most fun way possible where there's 5 seconds left in a game or something like that. Don't do it.
We'll get into it later. It was more fun than the butt safety.
Yeah. we'll get into that when we talk about
but before we talk about that team lost, though, to my point.
Yes.
If you get a safety, you're going to lose the game where it's bad luck like this.
Maybe that's an advantage. Maybe we should have more punts in the end zone straight into people's body parts. I don't know. But the next one we have to talk about, Ohio State taking on Wisconsin. Big game, Saturday night, blackout in the horseshoe, and C.J. Stroud reminded everyone why he is one of the favorites to win the Heisman. 5 touchdowns, 17 for 27, 281, and Ohio State absolutely decimates Wisconsin 52-21. This one was over from the jump, basically.
Yeah, it was over.
This was one of those Ohio State rolled. They looked good. So now I think we've seen all 3 of the top 3 teams. If you're Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State, we've seen their A game. We've seen probably their D, C- game. We now know everyone's weaknesses, their strengths, everything. So welcome to October. We've seen everyone at their best. We've seen everyone at their worst.
Without question. I think this was a very impressive game from Ohio State. Obviously, and the way they just took it to them early on in the game, it wasn't even like they let them hang around for a little bit. I think this garnishes the question, are they better than Alabama? I'm not putting them in the Georgia level yet because Georgia obviously proved it against Oregon. That opening game was even more dominating in this game, but I think you could make the case as Ohio State at the Alabama level at this point, and could you even jump them at rank 2? I mean, obviously Alabama blew out Vanderbilt, but again, this was a very impressive win for me against not obviously a top-tier Big Ten team, but still a solid team.
Wisconsin will probably get eight wins this year, but it's just Ohio State just kind of showed they were just offensively, they just cannot be. When they're playing their A game, they cannot be stopped. Doesn't matter how good your defense is or how well you're known for defense. It's just honestly, Badgers are kind of on that weird slope where it's are they going to have winning seasons? Yes, but they're not playing as good as they could.
No, so that's more a Big Ten West problem this year. That entire division is a battle to see if you can win 9 games, and also the division. Unless you're Minnesota. Minnesota might have a legitimate shot. We'll talk about them a little bit later on throughout the year, basically, because they're number 21 now. They might show up, folks. Just throwing that one out there. That's a team to remember. Looking to the next one, Big Noon nearly struck again with a fun game and maybe even another upset. Michigan gets a 34-27 win. They squeak it out over Maryland. And, I mean, this game had question marks from the beginning. First play of the game, Maryland muffs the kickoff off of their return man's face. Michigan falls on it. One play later, 10-yard touchdown pass. Wolverines up 7-0, and it got weirder from there. That was the great tone setter. Maryland goes back and forth the entire time. Wolverines finally go up 11 in the fourth. But Maryland, I mean, they kept it a one-possession game almost the entire time. They showed they're not a bad team. They just have to play in a division with Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State.
And I will say it's like Tua's little brother, obviously, overall had a decent game, but those 2 interceptions, that's not going to really help you as much. But tops off to Maryland for doing what they could to try to really make this a game and also try to do something with it, but obviously a little too late to really do much of anything with scoring with 45 seconds. So basically, obviously, had to rely on other things to happen. But Michigan, it seemed like just kind of looking at some of that second half or mainly that fourth quarter, Michigan pretty much took over, but obviously Maryland tried to come back on that. But obviously Wolverines did what they had to do to get their first conference win, go 4-0, and Maryland showing that they can give some teams some problems. I easily see them probably getting 8 wins.
Yeah, solid game for Maryland. They had a lot to prove in this game. Obviously, people were questioning how well could they play, and they came out and showed out. Obviously, had a lead for a little bit here throughout this game, led most of the second quarter. And credit to Michigan for battling back, finding a way. I know it ends up being 7, but went up double digits late in the game there. And I think that goes to show this Michigan team can fight over adversity. Obviously, they faced a few things in this game. So I think that was a big telling thing for Michigan is even when they're down and facing some adversity, they can get past it.
I will say rushing game for Michigan is really, really good.
Yeah, Blake Corum is a great running back. 30 carries, 243, and 2 touchdowns. That's an NCAA football 14 stat line.
Yeah, that is.
That's a crazy. That's something I would do.
I will say I think that's going to be a major thing for Michigan. If they can just keep running the football well, they could easily go undefeated going into the big game with Ohio State.
They could. They've got to have a lot of possibilities of wins they should easily take care of, but you got to win those games.
Exactly.
And this showed, Michigan faced some adversity first time this year, but like you said, Andrew, the ability they were able to show up at the sign of it after playing well, nobody for 3 games. The next one here, this was a big-time battle at 11 a.m., a double overtime war between Clemson and Wake Forest. And if you had Clemson's offense dropping 51 on Wake Forest, congratulations. Congrats. Just tell us the lottery numbers in the comments below of this video or something because, man, I did not expect this to go this way. I knew we would get some points. I knew that would happen. That's what Wake Forest does. I did not expect full-on shootout in the ACC. I thought Clemson would handle this a little bit better, but credit to everybody on offense. Everyone stood up, did their part. Just a back-and-forth game the entire time, but when push comes to shove, Clemson's defense gets the stop they need.
I mean, you love scoring. This was the game for you, and I certainly watched almost all of that second half, and I was just amazed how well Wake Forest was able just to handle that Clemson defense. They made that Clemson defense look like they didn't know how to play defense. I mean, the only way they were even try to get stops was they had to constantly keep grabbing receivers on that. Wake Forest had this game in their hands, but they're really showed that their defense is really lacking in a lot of places. And DJ played a really good game. I was doubting his ability a lot of the time, and this game he showed that, hey, I can play just as well as the guys who came before me. He's finally getting that little thing off of that, he's just not that great. He's amazing. And Hartman, obviously, surprisingly only threw the ball less than 30 times. I was thinking he was going to
29.
I was thinking he was going to have to throw it for 40 plus, which he did, but a lot of that stuff either got called back or penalties on Clemson. So it was just obviously great game by Hartman. He throw 337. So it's like, great job. I really wish Wake Forest could run the ball a lot better. Otherwise, that would help out a lot of things. But to keep doing that option, QB option, whether you hand the ball off or take it yourself, and it was just like they would sit there for like 5 seconds for this side to actually do something with the football.
See, that's tactical because the way
I know.
The way that works is if you tackle them while they're holding the ball, that technically becomes defensive holding because you're technically trying to tackle a blocker, but you don't know who's the blocker. So there's a whole scheme to that. It's a genius play call when you break it down like that. But
I just
man,
feel
it's weird. The first time you see it, you kind of like, what?
It's like, is this a busted play?
Like, explain, and then you see him run it like 20 times. You're like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
go get him.
I think if they got more better, like at least over 100 yards rushing overall in regards to their main running back, I think they'd be doing a lot better. The game probably would have went a different direction. Maybe I don't think so, but it's just like, it was a great game by Wake and Clemson. Wake should have, in my opinion, should have had this game, should have won it, but Clemson did what they always done in the past, get it done, and tops off for them.
Yeah, the problem in this game, Wake just started slow. I mean, the offense was going to wake up at some point, but that's what cost them early on. It's going to be tough to come back in a game against Clemson. And, I mean, with that being said, I was shocked to see – I know, Cade, you mentioned it at the 51, but I was shocked to see Wake put up 45 on the Clemson defense. That was my biggest takeaway is how real that offense is over there at Wake Forest. So credit to them for having 45. But I think that was their only issue in this game. It was just off to too slow of a start, and weren't able to overcome it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'll get you every time. Yeah. Absolutely will. It's the same thing that happened in this game. K-State taking on Oklahoma. Wildcats with a big win. Coach Kleiman said our team has to be more aggressive, and my goodness, they absolutely were. Getting to see K-State, this offense in person, we talked about Colin Klein, their offense coordinator. This feels like watching that team that they had in 2012. They're going to run the ball. They know what they're going to do. They have Deuce Vaughn. They have Adrian Martinez. They're going to run that QB power. Try and stop us. Mm-hmm. Oklahoma stopped it maybe one time out of 15.
Yeah.
It was not a great game for the Oklahoma defense, but this was one of those weird games with Oklahoma where usually when I watch them, you can figure out what the problem is immediately. Okay, it's the defense. The offense is fine. This is one of those weird games where it's kind of everybody's fault. The offense had a few questionable decisions, I feel like. A lot of screens, a lot of more running back swings, things like that. You don't need to be running those when it's 2nd and 10. I don't think throwing to Eric Gray for a 2-yard gain is going to help you there. Yeah. That's more on Jeff Levy than anything else. Dylan Gabriel had like 2 or 3 bad passes.
He had like about 5. He had like 5 or 6 that if he hits his target, OU wins this game. He had a couple of open shots where it should have been touchdowns, and he overthrew his guys by 15, or he threw a little too high.
I mean, that's been the thing with Dylan Gabriel. But at the end of the day, when you go 26 for 39, 334 TDs, and you don't win the game, it comes down to the defense has got to figure this thing out. The big play, of course, is the 3rd and 16 Martinez converts. And, I mean, you want to talk about soul-crushing. Seeing 85,000 people go from rowdy to in 1 second, that's the play. K-State looks like everyone thinks they're supposed to. You beat OU 3 of the last 4 years. You had that Tulane loss, and, I mean, they do this every time. This is what they do. They overlook. I don't know if that's the actual problem, but they always play that one bad game. They got to get their superpowers going. And, boy, they played great. I mean, there's nothing else I could say. They had a game plan. They executed it. OU had a game plan. I don't know what it was, but they technically had one.
I think the game plan was because of how Martinez was not playing up to how he could. They were looking at, well, just stop Deuce Vaughn. That's it.
But if you do that, you don't run a 3-man front the entire
I'm saying, well, the thing is that they were initially stopping Deuce Vaughn. That's where Martinez just went up, and then also Martinez was actually throwing good pass. Like, he was throwing like I thought he could throw. He threw really well. I mean, 243 yards passing. So it's like the man clearly knew what he was. It's like clearly OU was not prepared for Martinez. They were prepared mainly to stop Deuce Vaughn, and they showed throughout over half the game that they could stop Vaughn as long as they could get guys in there. But obviously, there were many times they could not stop Vaughn. And one thing that really confused me is that when Martinez is the bigger problem, why do you on 3-16? I understand you don't want to risk a pass, but it's like you got to send more than just 5 guys. You got to send 6 or 7 on him.
Well, see, that's the problem. I saw people breaking down the play. 2 of those guys are not supposed to run up there. They're supposed to be spies on Martinez. They, for some reason, they misread the play as, oh, we need to go block offensive line. And then Martinez sees, everyone's at the line. I'll just run straight. No one's stopping me.
Because the 7 guys that 6 guys that drop back, they're not even looking where Martinez is. By the time they turn around, he's already almost for the first down, and then he gets a lot more because everyone's spread out.
But that's the silver lining I have for Oklahoma at the end of the day.
I will say
you had all these mistakes, you still only lost by 7.
I will say another thing is Eric Gray. You need to give him he should have been given the ball.
Eric Gray had a good game.
He should have been given the ball a lot more. Go ahead.
I think to your point, Cade, is they didn't. I think they tried to. I mean, they definitely did try to stop Martinez, like you said, Cade, having 3 back most of the game. But that was the problem throughout, though, and letting him run the majority of the game too was. I don't know. They didn't have a quarterback spy on him throughout the whole game. Like I know they were supposed to on that 3rd and 16, but I felt like that hurt him a lot, multiple different times. But to your point too about how silent that crowd went. Well, I was listening to it on the way back from the Northwestern game, so I wasn't watching, but I was listening to it on the radio. So I don't know the announcers' names. But no, you could just hear the devastation in not only their voices, but announcers have crowd mics nowadays. But you could hear how loud it was before the snap, and then just the complete silence as the play is going on. Like you could hear throughout the play too, as the silence went quickly.
I want to give K-State credit for this as well because I want to set the scene a little bit more. 2 of the loudest moments I've ever heard in the history of Owen Field are right before K-State converts a play to end the game. I want to give credit to them that Colin Klein did it in 2012 on a 4th and 1 where he just bullied the ball, bully ball, just run over a guy, get a first down, game's over, they win. They had a timeout. They turned all the lights off. They played, I can't remember what the name of the song is, but Kansas uses it for their basketball opening every single year, and they would always show it on ESPN. We'll never know the actual name of this song. But everyone does it for basketball now at this point. And then the entire crowd's clapping along. It's okay. We got 3rd and 16. And I joked to my dad right before this. I said, watch Martinez run for 17 yards here. Watch it happen. And he ran for 18. So, I was off by a yard. I'm sorry.
So you jinxed it.
I didn't jinx it. I knew what was going to happen.
He predicted
I've watched enough OU football to know when we're about to get beat, and this just had that feel.
No, I was about to apologize for last week for jinxing it since I said it was going to be the opposite. They go up 14-0 and control the game from there. But no, so I was going to but it sounds like you took over the jinx for me.
Listen,
so I'm going to take back my apologies, OU fans.
Here's my thing when it comes to Oklahoma. Most OU fans, when I talk to them, we know when we're going to lose. Like, when we get down like that, and you can just like, oh, we're getting just completely out physical. This thing's done. This is over. And then we got back 14-14. I thought, okay, this is the difference we talked about. We did this in Lincoln last week, obviously against a much worse Nebraska team, but that same type of thing. And then you kick it right to Malik Knowles, and he runs 60 yards downfield. Coverage goes the complete opposite way of him. And there goes all the momentum again. K-State goes right back into their type of ball game. And, credit to them. You have to take advantage of that. They absolutely did. OU made mistakes. K-State didn't. That's how they beat you. That's how they'll always beat you.
And pretty much, I think one thing OU will need to especially fix on their line is that they were getting bullied seemed like half the time by K-State. They were able to – that's why Martinez and Deuce were able to run so well through the middle part of the game. But obviously, OU still, despite all the mistakes, still only lost by 7. So it's like you played your worst game of the year to a K-State team that was more prepared for you than you thought, and obviously you got to rebound for next week.
Yeah, you got to rebound against TCU. We'll talk about that when we do our predictions. But we had another close call in Corvallis, where everything always seems to go wrong for the Trojans. If they don't lose, it's always close. And it was another close one. But you got a little guy named Caleb Williams. He can pull some magic out. And that's exactly what the Trojans do. A 17-14 win, pulling it out late. That defense forcing 4 Oregon State interceptions. And, what a win for USC. This is one of those games they absolutely lose last year. This year you have the talent to pull it out, and they win another close game. This is what the Trojans are, I would say, get used to in a Lincoln Riley system. But seeing it 17-14 and not, 45-42, it's a little different for me. But, hey, whatever floats your boat, I guess.
I will say it's like, especially the turnovers for Oregon. If Oregon State does not turn the ball over, Oregon State wins this game, no problem.
Well, yeah.
Probably pretty easily, but obviously great job by USC forcing turnovers. But that offense has got to get – they can't do that again. They got to get going, especially with how all that talent they have at USC. You can't tell me against Oregon State they aren't able to score at least around 30 points. No offense to – Oregon State obviously played a good game, but still is like Oregon State shouldn't be doing that overall.
I mean, it's just one bad game. We've talked about how good USC's offense has been to this point. I mean, that's why we all thought it would be a high-scoring game. And no one expected it to be this low. So, I don't know. You're on the road in a conference game. Anything can happen. They came out with the victory. That's what matters. I think USC is going to be just fine. I think it's one little hiccup. But, I mean, they did enough. They figured out what they had to do to score in the end, and that's what got the job done. But I see what you're saying. Like, yeah, you expect them to you play better against Oregon State. But, again, when it's a road game, I throw some of that stuff out of the window because anything can happen on the road, especially in a conference game.
It's been also I was also expecting both teams to offensively play a little better, but I get what you mean.
Yeah, but I mean that's what happens. It's Pac-12 after dark.
And it was on the Pac. And I tried to find the game.
No, it's on Pac-12 Network.
Yeah,
you ain't getting that game.
Because I thought we had the. I thought I had the package for it, but I don't. Yeah. So I couldn't.
No one does unless you live in Australia. Real thing.
Is it a package? I thought it was free, to be honest.
No,
I've never had to log in.
The only Pac-12 network I've ever seen is if you get it on like Dish or Sling or something like that. I've never seen it on DirecTV. I will probably never see it on DirecTV.
I always just go to Pac-12, whatever.com, whatever it's called, and I've never had to.
Andrew, stop trying to use life hacks here.
I've never had to log in. Like I just go to their website.
Yeah, but speaking of teams that needed to find themselves, Arkansas found themselves in a bit of a bind. You go up 14-0 in the first quarter. Everything's going well for you in Jerry World, but the Aggies slowly churn their way back into the game. You get an 82-yard fumble return on a lateral fumble, which I never thought I would see in my life. But sure enough, Texas A&M pulls it out, makes it 14-13 at the half. They went for two, didn't get it. And then the Aggies continue to pour it on. Their defense shuts the Hogs down. Arkansas gets one last gasp and a field goal for the win, and it doinks off the upright. Arkansas losing to Texas A&M 23-21. A&M gets another one-possession win in Jerry World. This is what they do here. They beat Arkansas, and they make everybody suffer.
Well, those Arkansas Razorbacks just made too many mistakes, and obviously that 82-yard fumble return really killed a lot of it because Arkansas should have punched that one in, or just get some points off of it. And A&M did what they were supposed to do. Defense pretty much did what they were supposed to do most of the game. Offense actually had some life to it. But at the end of the day, this is a game Arkansas should not have, in my opinion, lost. But A&M did what they were supposed to do and came out and got the victory.
Hey, you're spot on. The 82-yard fumble return, I mean, that changed momentum of the game. If you're Arkansas, you at least go back up. Whether you settle for a field goal or you find a way to get into the end zone, go back up 2 touchdowns. Instead, you're fumbling the ball and going the other direction, cutting the deficit there. I don't know. It's because they had the momentum at that point, but I don't know why they went for 2 instead of just tying the game. So that was kind of surprising to see from A&M. But in the end, we talked about it last week. If it got into a shootout, it was going to favor Arkansas. But it turned defensive, as you saw the way A&M season has gone. It was going to favor A&M, and that's where you got here for the most part, a very defensive game. And A&M was able to take advantage of it. But credit to A&M. I mean, obviously we're all laughing at some of their games early on in the year, but this is a statement game from them that we're not out of this yet.
Yeah, this is what they were supposed to do. You bounce back. You get beat by App State. You found a way to beat ranked teams back-to-back weeks with Miami and Arkansas. Now you got to get ready for the next few weeks because they're waiting. They are absolutely waiting. But, yes, big win for the Aggies. They're starting to take care of business now. I mean, this is what you're supposed to do. And the next one here, speaking of taking care of business, Tennessee, first time in a while. This is only, their second time in like 18 years they've beaten Florida. It's been quite a while, but the Vols get a 38-33 win, and Hendon Hooker had himself a game, 22 for 28, 349, 2 TDs. Volunteers nearly got themselves in a bit of trouble. Florida getting touchdowns late in the game, almost got an onside kick and everything to go their way. But Tennessee, they held on. Would have felt like everything bad about Tennessee football was going to happen again. They found a way to hold on, and the Josh Heupel experience is going well out there in Knoxville.
Yeah, tennis. It's obviously a close game first half, and then Tennessee took over most of the game, and then obviously they let Florida have some life near the end, but Tennessee did what it's supposed to. Hooker obviously living up to his potential, being a very solid game in the air and on the ground, and pretty much did what he was supposed to do. It's really all you can ask out of him. And Josh Heupel obviously making things work in Tennessee.
Yeah, credit to Tennessee coming out and finding ways to continue to get the job done. Obviously move up, as we already talked about, with the poll into the top 10 and this week's rankings, rightfully so. And I'll tell you what, I don't know, this Tennessee team, I guess, where are you ranking them in the SEC now? I think that's the big question. How high can they go? Who can they compete with? Can they give Georgia and Alabama a game? Like, how real is this Tennessee team is what I think this kind of win does for you.
I think offensively they probably could give Alabama much more fits than Georgia. Georgia just, for the most part, I understand they had a little bit of hiccup with Kent State, but that's nothing to really I think that's just they didn't play their best, and they're just going to beat up everybody else for the most part. But I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee actually really gives it to them for the right, because I mean you got Bama in 2 weeks.
Yes, Tennessee gets Bama at home, so I expect that to be a ball game. Tennessee might be able to win that game if they play their A game being at home. It's a rivalry game, all the emotion in that. Mm-hmm. Georgia being on the road, I'm not as confident in the Vols. I wouldn't even think they would win that game even if it was at home. That's just who Georgia is. But being in Athens, I would not trust Tennessee to win that game. Alabama at home, though, you got to look at that game. That might become a top, 8 matchup.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you guys saying? 2 losses? I think we're going 2 losses.
Yeah.
Bama, Georgia.
I'd probably
I think they beat Kentucky.
I think they could beat Kentucky, yeah. Looking at that, maybe, 1 loss at the worst, 2 losses more likely.
I'd probably say, like, Kentucky. I think the Tennessee and Kentucky, that game will probably be pretty close for a bit, but I think Tennessee would probably eventually pull away on that one. But we'll find out when we get to right before the 29th.
Yeah, we will absolutely find out. The next one here, Oregon and Washington State. This was a back-to-back in terms of scoring. There was a lot of just quick boom, 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 boom type of things happening in this one. This was a minute 21. It's 37-34. 1 second left. It's 44-41. This was a crazy game the entire time. Wazoo looked great early on, but Oregon came back. Bo Nix made big plays, and the Ducks did exactly what you're supposed to do if you're going to get a win in the Palouse.
I think Bo Nix is now finally starting to find his groove and play up to his potential for the most part. I mean, those scores late in the fourth really showed that, hey, he's here. He's pretty darn good. Obviously, nothing to shine on Washington State. Washington State had their shot to win the game, but obviously that pick six right at the end really messed it up for them. Otherwise, Washington State probably maybe wins that game. But good job for Oregon.
Yeah, this is what I thought the USC-Oregon State game was going to be. I thought this was going to be the shootout kind of type game we get from that style of game. But, no, I mean, Oregon battled. Again, anything can happen on the road. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I think everyone expected them to win a little bit, with a little bit more ease, not as close, obviously, playing from behind for a while. But, again, I think that shows the road kind of atmosphere can get to you. But credit to Oregon. They needed this win, obviously, when they got blown out from Georgia. They got a lot to kind of bounce back from it and make up to get people's belief back. And a big come-from-behind win like that, getting over that adversity spot there in the fourth quarter, it just goes a long way. I don't care who you're playing.
Yeah, so Oregon getting 29 in the fourth quarter, just a giant day for them. I mean, really, just that quarter, they could have almost won the game. That's how crazy that is. But, hey, if you're Oregon, that's a huge win. You got to keep going on. Because remember, in the Pac-12 this year, there's no division, so you got to finish with the top two.
I'll tell you what, though, to flip it real quick, that's a devastating loss for a team like Washington State, and you wonder how they come back from it. Like, I don't know who they play next week yet, but you got to wonder, do they come out slow, or are they going to come out fire and trying to get back to where they were at in this game?
Yeah, that'll be a battle. Play? Washington State will play Cal.
Okay,
they'll play Cal, which that is a battle of 3-1 teams. Cal's more of a grinded out type of team, so we'll have to see how Wazoo faces off. They are at home, though. It is a 4:30 kickoff Central Time, so it should be 2:30 Pacific on the Pac-12 network. Could be an interesting one if anyone could watch it. I guess Andrew can report on that one since you're apparently the only person in America that has Pac-12.
Unless if it's a new thing.
Yeah, I don't know. But Baylor taking on Iowa State, the next one here. And this was about what you expect from these two. It was back and forth. It was a defensive battle for a good chunk of the game. But Baylor holds on, forces some turnovers, and gets a 31-24 win in Ames.
I was like, this was a grind and pound, like Big Ten style of play. Obviously, that's how Iowa State loves to play. But still, it's just like, it was just, I mean, obviously, when Baylor went up 31-14, you're thinking Baylor was actually dominating that game. It's like, no, that game was close most of the time. Obviously, Baylor just found ways to get ahead and stay ahead, and obviously getting turnovers really helped them. So, obviously, Baylor still trying to, obviously, great game by Baylor. Iowa State, obviously, overall being a much better team than we thought they would be. I figured this game probably a couple weeks ago, Baylor would have just smacked them. But Iowa State showing they can still play with people, even despite the fact talent-wise they're probably the least talented in the league.
I mean, that's what a good coach does. I mean, he keeps you in games, and that's what he's going to do throughout the season. The turnovers hurt Iowa State in this game. You look back on it, that you don't have those turnovers, you're obviously in a lot better shape to win. But credit to Baylor. I mean, they put up 31. It's not something you'd expect. I would expect a lower number here in this kind of game. And, no, a big win for Baylor here going into next week.
And also, Shapen obviously turning around, making a huge turnaround after the BYU game last couple against Texas State and against Iowa State.
His receivers are finally catching the ball. It's a miracle for them. That was one of their big problems is they needed people to just catch the ball. But Baylor getting a big win, that sets them up perfectly for a not big noon type of game against Oklahoma State. And then the next one here, Texas Tech taking on Texas. And folks, this was a classic showdown between two teams that really do not like each other. It's a bit one-sided depending on who you ask, but this was back and forth. Texas finally looked like they were going to put it away. They're going to get that conference win. They're up 24-14 at the half, and then here comes Texas Tech charging back, tying the game at 31 midway through the fourth, taking the lead with 20 seconds left. But then Texas has a little bit of life left in them. Hudson Card drives down the field. 48-yard field goal for Bert Auburn is good. And then Bijan Robinson fumbles in the first play of overtime. Texas Tech falls on it and gets the 37-34 win. Just what a game for Texas Tech. Able to get that big win there. Controlled the time of possession. Forced some turnovers. This is everything you wanted to see for Texas Tech. And then, of course, the big court storming, which led to the controversy of Texas Tech fan shoves a Texas player who then fell into another Texas Tech fan. So you had both sides accusing each other of, well, I can't believe your people would do that. How dare you? You know, this is offensive. And it was just like, okay, whatever, guys.
Okay, first hearing that a Tech fan shoved a Texas player, which resulted in that, yeah, that's Tech's really at fault for that. But I don't – the fine shouldn't have been as big as it was, but you probably could still fine them. But it's like – obviously, a lot of people are just – the one thing that really made no sense is that obviously no one was really explaining what happened. So people were just like saying, I can't believe they're fining people for just storming the field. I'm like, that's not why they fine. Like, there's more to that than just storming the field. You have to have done something to cause a fine.
No. Every time it's by rule. Fans are not allowed to storm the field. Fans just do it. So every time fans storm the field, that school is fined.
How much money?
I mean, it's not always disclosed. Yeah, it depends on conference.
Because I know the SEC,
but no, it is by rule. Like every time Oklahoma State pulled off whatever upset in basketball and fans stormed the court, that cost the school money every single time.
That's stupid.
I mean, it's for safety. Just for that reason. Like that's why they have it in pre-existence, because it's for safety, in case that happens or something. Because like think about it, if that Tech fan that gets hit by the Texas player, even though it's all accidental at that point, Texas is gonna get fined because the player's hurting a Tech fan. Are they gonna win or not? Fine, sorry. They're gonna, that gives the guy a chance to sue. Are they gonna win the lawsuit? Probably not. But that's why it's in there. It's all protection for that.
I just think it's dumb.
I mean, again, it's for safety.
I understand it's safety, but it's like usually fans are usually pretty good about not letting that happen.
I don't know. It depends on the type of game, too. Like, if this is a rivalry game or something like that, like, I can only imagine. The big one for me I go back to is the Kansas State game in Manhattan in basketball, where the K-State fans pretty much nearly blocked Kansas's exit out of the court, and they're trapped down there, and people start celebrating and getting kind of uncomfortably close to them. And, you don't know what drunk college kids are going to do. Anything can happen when you put a bunch of 20-year-olds together that have no idea what's going on.
Especially on a Saturday night primetime.
Yeah, especially
when they've had all day.
Yeah, especially on a Saturday when they've had all day to do who knows what. I understand the fine. It's never a problem to me. Most schools are going to pay it anyway, gladly.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. And trust me, I mean, I went to Oklahoma State. And I stormed the field / court plenty of times. But, I mean, it's all fun and games, and the school, in the end, they like it. It's not like a devastating fine that's going to cost
Yeah, it's like $25,000. It's not.
It's a protection and safety thing, and I don't disagree with it for that reason.
Was it $50,000 that they got hit with, or was that just 25?
I don't know. It depends on the conference. I know the SEC does like a tier thing where it's, I think, 25 the first time, 50 the next time, 100,000 the next time. I don't know what the Big 12 exactly does because, I mean, OU doesn't get many opportunities to rush the field or court or anything, but it's usually not that much. It's a slap on the wrist, but it's so they put the warning of, hey, guys, just don't be idiots.
Exactly. Because plus, if you think about it, like, that is not quote-unquote private but that is technically trespassing away, too. That's why if you see two fans jump on the field or court, they're going to get arrested. They're going to get taken out, and they're ejected from the game. But you can't stop a crowd of 1,000 people charging at you.
Yeah.
So that's the difference there. But that it's all off limits. Like, it's all protected for the players.
Yeah,
you can't.
This isn't your own public property. You can't just do whatever on it.
Yeah, because of the incident that happened on with the storming of the field, they got hit with $50,000.
Okay.
So like I think most schools, because usually schools are when it comes to football are not as. It's not as bad. Like, you really hear there's no incidents that happen, but obviously I think it's probably maybe what you said, 25 or something like that. But I think with what happened with Tech, I think they had to do a $50,000.
Yeah.
So.
You know what the sad part is, putting that into perspective? And I don't know what it costs at Tech, but like for some schools, that's like one, maybe two people's tuition. Yeah. If not, like in some schools, that's just one person's.
Like, Texas,
or like even
I'd probably say for like if it was Texas that got hit with it, that wouldn't even be someone's tuition.
As I say, for some schools, it's not even one. Isn't that what's crazy about it?
Yeah, with Texas Tech, they'd be like, okay, that's 2.5 people. Whatever, no big deal. They came here anyways. That ain't a problem. We beat Texas. There's nothing wrong here. We'll pay that fine gladly.
I will say some people were kind of looking at the game and thinking that Texas had, like, I know they were up by 14 in the third, but it's like Texas shouldn't have let this happen in regards to how overall they've played. But it's like Tech showed adversity that they wanted it more than Texas. So
well, I mean, this always seems to happen with Texas, though. They get up and then they let their foot off the gas every time in the fourth quarter. No matter what game it is, you're going to see it happen. That's just a thing they do. That's not even a Steve Sarkisian problem. That's been a problem since Tom Herman. That was since Charlie Strong, even since the end of Mack. That's just a thing Texas does in these types of games. I don't know if they fall apart. I don't know if it's a strength and conditioning thing. I don't know if it's just a coaching thing that's been passed on 4 different times somehow by now.
Because they did that to Oklahoma State last year, where I know they did the same thing with both Oklahoma teams. They got up really big on OU, and they just let OU did a great job getting back in it, but Texas didn't really know how to respond. I know Caleb Williams was a major factor, but still. Then Oklahoma State got down early, but the defense woke up in the second half and actually slowed Bijan Robinson down. I mean, the man didn't even get probably like 50 yards in the second half. I mean, he only got 1 yard in the fourth.
Yeah, but that's what Texas is. They'd switch it. I'm at a loss for words. Like, I honestly am. I don't know how you keep doing this for 12 straight years at this point. but they just keep finding a way. They've got West Virginia next week. That's a team you should absolutely beat no matter who you trot out there at quarterback. If it's Card again, which I think it would more than likely be, you do not lose to West Virginia. I understand West Virginia is 2-2. You could say they're 2 plays away from 4-0. That is not a game you lose if you're Texas.
No,
I think West Virginia might win that game.
I mean, that's what I mean. That's a game you should not lose. Will they? Possibly.
I don't know if I agree with that, the backup quarterback. I think that makes a big difference.
When you're at home like that, though, to me, when it's a home night game against a team that you know how to beat.
My whole thing is that it comes down to Texas, how well they play on defense, because that, in my opinion, has been their weakest link for years.
Yeah.
The offense has always had all kinds of firepower, regardless of who's been the quarterback or in the skill positions. They have talent on that offense. They can score. They can obviously have average around at least 30 points for most of the season, besides the obviously game against Alabama. But it's one of these things is where it's like even Card, who's not really that great versus Quinn Ewers, still is able to play well overall. Yeah. But this is where it's like that defense just gives up too many points. And that's what's going to kill them, especially JT Daniels and West Virginia are coming off a huge victory over Virginia Tech after suffering some heartbreaking losses and getting blown out by Kansas. So it's like they're obviously going to be more hungry to get one on Texas. And that's just something Texas has got to have. They got to fix that defense. Otherwise, they're probably not going to beat West Virginia because West Virginia can sling it. It's just obviously West Virginia's defense isn't that great.
Yeah, so that's the problem, though, is West Virginia's defense isn't elite by any means either. You have the better skill players, I would think. One, Bijan Robinson. Who doesn't want that at running back? Xavier Worthy. Who doesn't want that at wide receiver? You have the guys. If you don't beat West Virginia, oh, boy, it's going to become Fire Sark territory pretty early in the season still.
Obviously, it's going to be a division between fans. It's like, well, he doesn't have Quinn Ewers. I'm like, even then, they should have won against Tech.
Yeah.
Tech, they could have beaten Alabama, but they didn't do it. So, many ways, they could have been undefeated right now and win their first conference game, but obviously, that's not the case. And if they lose another game, they're probably not going to make the championship game unless they run the table after this game.
Yeah, it's going to be a whole interesting situation there. But that brings us to another team having the same kind of problem. Miami gets not just beat, but pretty much embarrassed by Middle Tennessee State. The Blue Raiders, 45-31 over Miami. I mean, Tyler Van Dyke gets pulled in this game for Garcia. Let me get the name here just again. Yeah, Jake Garcia. Could not actually remember his name because I never had audio with this game when I watched it.
Oh, it was
trying to watch
bad.
it in a stadium where I have no idea what's going on except actually looking at the screen. Miami had, so many mistakes in this game. You're down 24-3 in the second quarter, and Miami just looks like they continue to regress. Even Mario Cristobal said it. They just got flat out dominated by Middle Tennessee State. Mm-hmm. That's all there is to say about this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was talking about Washington State. This was almost a little bit of a hangover game. Obviously, a tough week before against, I believe it was A&M, right? The week before. So, come off that tough loss there, and I think that it just kind of got to you see it from time to time from teams. And again, once you start off that slow, you let teams hang around, gain confidence throughout the game. It's tough and it becomes a battle, and they weren't able to do enough to obviously overcome it. And again, I think it goes back to the week before, and it was just one of those you got beat up against A&M just physically and stuff, and I think it's just a little bit of a hangover here for Miami.
And I was talking to my dad. He was actually down in Perkins for the last weekend, but he called me and we talked for a tiny bit about this game. He basically told me the interesting stat that I didn't realize. Middle Tennessee only got one first down and put up 24-31 points. Yeah. They did not register a single first down for most of the game, and then proceeded to only hit and get that many points. Miami's defense got burnt. They gave up 4 big plays.
Yeah, you look at the scoring drive here in the first quarter. Middle Tennessee on their 3 scoring drives had a total of 77 yards, a 28-yard field goal and a 2-yard drive, 15-yard pick six, and a 71-yard touchdown pass to cap a 75-yard drive. They didn't have to do a lot. When you force 3 turnovers, you're good. The big play of the game, I think, was getting the goal line stand, stopping Miami on 4th and goal. Then you run a 98-yard touchdown pass to go up 38-17. even though Miami ran the kickoff back the very next play, I didn't feel like it meant anything. Like, that was game, set, match right there.
Mm-hmm.
You go up 21 the fourth quarter, you could just see the look from the fans, the energy in the, not even third full crowd. The players are just dejected. You're at rock bottom right now if you're at Miami. And this is everything you did not want to happen under Mario Cristobal is happening. Miami still looks like same old Miami. I get it's year one. You're trying to build it up. But this is somehow feels like even more of a low than they've ever been at.
It's like, and for me, it was like, I'm not sure how different it would have been with Miami's previous coach. I didn't think they should have gotten rid of him, but they did anyways. And obviously Miami seemed like, hopes are high this season. And I was like, I didn't think Miami would be where they're at, basically be rock bottom with how they've played. I mean, conference-wise, you're 2-1, not bad, but you lost a regular conference game, then you lost to Middle Tennessee, of all teams.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
And granted, Middle Tennessee is not a bad, group of 5 team by any means. They're 3-1. Their only loss is to James Madison, who's a pretty good team. But still, if you're Miami, you have the mindset of Miami here, where you're trying to get back, you just lost a big game to Texas A&M that you were in, you some questionable red zone field goal decisions, but oh well, you can adapt from that. This is a game you're supposed to win. But I mean, you look at it here, you're a 25-point favorite. This is a game that, okay, if you only win by 14, that's a little bit concerning, but this is just, I don't even know where to start with Miami here.
I really don't. There's just a lot of problems. I think big part is offensively they don't know what Van Dyke's not doing it for you, and Jake Garcia didn't really help you much either. So it's like they need an elite quarterback or someone that can get stuff going. There's nothing there for them.
The only thing I did notice that I saw some Miami people pointing out was that when Garcia entered the game, it seemed like the players cared a little bit more. Tyler Van Dyke, this was a problem with him. He's not really more of a leader. He's more of an introverted type. If he doesn't have control of that offense, we're not even talking about on the field. We're talking about off the field here. You bring Jake Garcia in, he starts playing better, we might see a QB change happening here for the Canes. And if that happens, I don't even know where you go at this point. Because usually once that happens and there's locker room divisions and things like that, you're just tumbling even further at that point.
I mean, Jake Garcia went 10 for 19, 169 yards, has a much better QBR rating than Van Dyke. I think you're going to probably see Garcia as a starter going forward.
Yeah, I would not be surprised. I mean, you look at Miami here. You get North Carolina this week. You got to be ready for a shootout there. Then you've got next week. You get a bye this week. You get Virginia Tech on the road, Duke, Virginia. These are 4 winnable games here in terms of talent level-wise at least. Then you get Florida State. That's a big rivalry game. Georgia Tech on the road. Georgia Tech fired Jeff Collins the other day. They're not a good team. Clemson on the road. That's a loss. You're not winning that game unless something crazy happens. And then Pitt. So you've got a pretty stacked November. This is supposed to be your period where you grow more as a team. We show, this is what we can do. This is looking like another middling Miami team here. So, this might be a deeper rebuild than we thought it was.
I'd probably say they beat the Virginia schools, but when it comes to North Carolina and Duke, they're either going to have a tough time winning those games or they'll lose outright. That's basically just how Miami is right now, just not in the best state possible. So I think they're probably going to barely be eligible, if not make it at all. So them just basing off how they played overall against Middle Tennessee. Obviously, that's just one game. You have the rest of the season to iron stuff out, rebrand yourself as a much different team overall. But it's really hard to see where Miami goes from here. Luckily, you have a bye week, so you can sort things out and get ready for North Carolina.
I don't know. I think they had one bad week against Middle Tennessee. You lose by one possession to A&M. It's not that bad of a loss down there in Texas A&M. You have a bye week. I think you figure things out. I think this is an overreaction from a lot of people. I'm going to say I think they went out the season outside Clemson. I truly believe that.
Yeah. To me,
I truly believe that.
To me, I disagree with you on the Florida State game because that's a rivalry. I get that's at Miami. They'll bring their A game.
How good is Florida State really? I don't think they're anything.
I think we'll find out.
The Miami level.
We'll find out this week. Yeah, if they lose to Wake, I'm 100% with you. Everyone on this schedule outside of Clemson is beatable. if they lose or if Florida State beats Wake, I think, maybe we're looking at a 7-6 win Miami team. That's how I see it.
Okay, on that, it's one of those. It depends on how well Florida State plays with Wake Forest. Obviously, Wake Forest, great offense. That defense is going to struggle here and there, but it's like how it's going to challenge how good is Florida State's offense going to do against Wake's offense, and then we'll see how Florida State's defense will handle it. I think Florida State is going to. I don't know if they'll win the game because we're not there yet. But it's just one of those things that it's just Florida State just needs to play someone, and if they play a close game and still lose to Wake, I think Florida State can have a good season overall.
Well, yeah, where Florida State's at 7-5 or 8-4 is a good season,
and still beat Miami. I think Miami is in a much worse state than Florida State will be.
Yeah, we can only tell, that we can only see and predict. But we do have one team we can talk about, and that is Kansas. Kansas is 4-0. In case you didn't hear me talk about it, the 3 other times I've already brought it up on this show today. Jayhawks getting a 35-27 win. The first time we saw Kansas with a little bit of adversity this season in terms of playing a more defensive game. Their offense not able to go as much. But Jalen Daniels, though, 19 for 23, 324, 4 TDs through the air, then on 11 carries, 83 rushing yards and a TD. We got to put him in the Heisman discussion. I never thought I would see that happen, but with how he's playing, just my goodness, Kansas, that offense, it's fun to watch, folks. It is absolutely fun to watch. Kansas doing everything they're supposed to do. They look easily the best since 2009. This might end up being their best team since 2007. They just got to win 2 more games to get there.
This is only the beginning, too.
This is only year 2 under Leipold.
Yeah, it's only going to get better from here as well. This is going to be a statement year for them. They're going to get some transfers or recruits to get there as well. Obviously, they already have the name from basketball and everything in recent history that kept them afloat. So I think that's going to help them, obviously. And, this is only the beginning. I think this is obviously a good run for Kansas, and we'll see what they're able to do as Big 12 continues. But, no, this is a good way to progress and then eventually continue to just go up from here.
Yeah, pretty much. I kind of obviously when looking at some of their recruiting classes, not just this last season, but this season prior, it was like, hey, they could be on an upswing. Just give them at least a couple years, and they'll at least be a decent to good team that can give some teams problems. But they're 4-0 right now, and they've overall have played very well. Obviously, you still got a couple more games where you play OU, but obviously, next couple games are not going to be slouch games. You got to bring your A game, especially in the Big 12 where everything's pretty much wide open. There's not really the team that you got to go beat. Everyone's kind of like almost dead even right now.
Sir, I'll have you know Kansas is first place in the Big 12 already.
Yeah, even then they're still not gonna.
They're tied for first. It counts. Just take a photo. Just remember that Kansas is first in the Big 12 in a sport that is not basketball. What a day!
I will say,
what a time.
And they get first because they got the best overall record.
There you go. And some things refuse to change.
I will say overall, Kansas is at least they've been able to. They got some good fan support last weekend.
They did. They got a sellout crowd. That was nice to see for them. First sellout in a while.
And I know we always joked around how the Kansas fans for football never show up, even when they were good. But it's like, hey, they showed up.
Oh, when they're good, they'll show up. They will. They love a winner. When you have a basketball team that wins all the time, they expect good things to come out of other programs. They finally got it turned around to football. But also, with some NFL to talk about as well, as I get everything set up here, were there any games that stood out to you as more, important, weird, doesn't make any sense whatsoever, good, literally any emotion? Yeah. Going for any emotion here.
Well, my emotions died after watching the Kansas City-Indianapolis game.
Oh, no, you're talking about that was a beautiful game of football. Oh, man.
They lost to the Colts.
Without question, Colts saved their season. There's a lot to storylines to take away from this week. Colts saved their season. Jaguars put themselves on the map. Are they for real this season? Arizona, they basically said this could be a long, long season without DeAndre Hopkins. So there's plenty of storylines to take away from here. Obviously, again, Rodgers over Brady this week. So, it was a fun week for the NFL.
It absolutely was. Getting into it, the Thursday night game, Pittsburgh taking on Cleveland, and stop me if you've heard this one before, but Pittsburgh and Cleveland down to the wire, kind of what we've seen these last few years. But Cleveland getting a 29-17 win with the fumble recovery in the end zone on the last play of the game by Denzel Ward. It was 23-17 a second before that. So another fun game between these two in the big Thursday night game.
Yeah, it's a lot more high scoring than I expected.
I know. We thought we were joking about this being 3-0 or something, but
but I mean, credit to the Browns. I mean, Brissett came out firing, got a couple good passes early on, helped the Browns jump out early, and didn't look back from there and protected the lead. So credit for Cleveland going out to get the win. I didn't think they'd get it done.
Yeah, pretty much just Browns did what they were supposed to, and Steelers just offensively couldn't really do much of anything. And Brissett obviously played a much better game. I've been hassling him for how poorly he's played for a good amount, but he did what he's supposed to do and did a good job. Obviously, Trubisky needs to do better, but it's Trubisky, so I can't really say much about that.
I mean, he didn't do terrible. I mean, 20 for 32, 207, not the worst in the world. To me, the big thing was the run game. Najee Harris only 56 yards on 15 carries. You look at Nick Chubb, 113 yards on 23 carries. Brissett played well. The thing to me that always will stand out with any Kevin Stefanski game, you got to check time of possession.
Yep.
That's to see. If they get that 35-minute mark, they hit 36:09, Cleveland's more than likely winning that game. That is their game plan. They're going to dominate you in every single way, and they were able to do it, whether it be offense, whether it be defense, whether it even be special teams. Cade York finally getting the field goal set up a little bit. Did have a little bit of mistakes here and there, but hey, that always seems to happen in these types of games. That's what makes them fun. But a solid win for the Browns. And the next one here, the Bears and the Texans. We almost got another OT game with the Texans. We were so close. But Santos hitting a 30-yard field goal as time expires off a Roquan Smith interception. Roquan Smith had a monster day, 15 to 16 tackles in the pick. He had himself a giant day. And, man, this is one of those weird games that went back and forth, back and forth. We knew it'd be more competitive than you'd think, but the Bears are 2-1. Good start for Chicago.
I mean, it's better than where they started off last year. So I think, obviously people are going to look at, well, you played close with the Texans. Texans have been playing most teams pretty close. So it's like they're not terrible, but they're not great. That's kind of where Chicago's got to do a lot better. But obviously Fields throwing 2 interceptions, and he was like, was that 8 for 17?
Yeah, Fields did not have a good game.
So it's like you got to do a lot. He's got to do much better. But obviously Herbert made up for it by 20 carries, 157, and two TDs.
Yeah, Khalil Herbert had a big game.
So it's like, and obviously defense for Chicago stepped up when they needed it. So improvements in certain aspects, but Fields has got to play much better game. Otherwise, if he plays a better game than what he did, they probably win that game easier, but Texans still obviously put up a fight.
When you're able to win in spite of your quarterback play, that's usually a good sign, though, for every other aspect.
Yeah. So
the problem is have an offensive line or anybody to throw the ball to. I mean, Herbert came in, played well for an injured David Montgomery, who got hurt early on in the game. But, I mean, this is what I expected. Two bad teams here. Somebody's going to have to win. And that's what, Chicago found a way to do it. So they move on to 2-1. But, I mean, again, they took advantage of a bad team.
I'm a bit disappointed. I really wanted a tie. I really wanted a 0-1-2 Texans team. That would have been such a nice-looking record. But the next one here, the Raiders and the Titans, somebody's got to go 0-3. Somebody's got to get their first win of the season. And it was the Titans. Despite everything happening, the Raiders could not pull out the comeback. Tennessee getting a 24-22 win despite not even scoring in the second half.
Go to show, you start off well. That's what's going to be able to go. And they had a big second quarter, jumped out to the lead. I'll tell you what, Raiders have been so disappointed. I thought they were going to be a lot better than they have been this year. That's unfortunate to see. I was hoping, Devontae Adams would go in, have a big year with them, and he's playing phenomenal. But, hopefully it's something here in the near future. Maybe the Raiders can turn it around. But once you get to 0-3, it's pretty tough to do. So, for the time being, Tennessee saves their season, especially in the division they're in. That's going to be wide open. Obviously, the Colts have struggled. Houston's a bad team. We'll see if Jacksonville's for real here in the upcoming week. So, I mean, this is a win Tennessee needed. They got it done at home, and we'll see if they're able to take over the division now.
It's like Derek Carr overall has played well this season. Just everything else is just not going well, and also that one interception probably didn't go well for him. But it's like you throw over 300 yards and you have two TDs and you play and you have a good completion to attempt ratio. So it's like Carr's doing what he's supposed to do, and he's playing really well. The problem is everything else is not going well, plus scoring, weight getting down 14 and just not – and your having to settle for field goals is not going to help you. So, obviously, Raiders got to get some things fixed, and congrats to Titans for getting their first win, though they still – who really knows how Titans will actually end up being.
Yeah, when you get trapped in the red zone field goal situation 3 different times, having to get 21, 32, and 35-yard field goals, that's never a good sign. You got to be able to finish and execute in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, this happens. But the next one here, the Chiefs taking on the Colts. The Colts have the perfect record. They're 1-1-1, everybody. They have done the perfect symmetry. This was a game that this made no sense, like literally no sense whatsoever. And I mean, this is what we do. We get one of these games every week. We got Jets beating the Browns in a minute 50 last week. We had crazy other stuff. I'm trying to think what happened week 1 here. We had a few interesting type of games. Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago. But this time it's the Chiefs falling victim to it at 2-1. Matt Amendola,
he had his 1 week.
He had his moment of weakness. He did kick a 26-yard field goal, missed some other stuff though.
Yep, and he got released.
Yeah, so that's what happens in the NFL.
And we still don't know when Bucker's coming back.
But the Colts pulling it out with 24 seconds left on an 8-minute drive. This is the Colts team everyone expected to see. It just took 3 weeks to get there.
Yeah, I mean, no question. I mean, again, you see this Colts team, you expect – I mean, people thought, Matt Ryan would come in and save the team. Didn't start out that way. I mean, did Matt Ryan play great? No, he played well enough to win. But, I mean, listen, if you hold the Chiefs to 17 points, I'm talking about your defense. I mean, again, Matt Ryan did enough, but that defense, you're going to hold Patrick Mahomes to 17 points. And I get it that they had 4 points off the board on a missed extra point and a missed field goal from Amendola. But, I mean, in the end, this is a great win for the Colts defense. And this is a momentum-changing win. Again, in a division, you don't know what's going to happen. So this saves the Colts season for the time being.
I'm just too angry.
Oh, sorry, you okay?
I'm just too angry. It's just like Mahomes still threw pretty well, but that arguably his worst game he's played.
Yeah.
Actually, it's the worst game he's played all year, and team just took a step back this week. Defense didn't do too shabby, but you still gave up 20, and offensively the team just was not as well prepared at all. Kelsey didn't have a great day. Schuster obviously still had a decent day, got a touchdown out of it, but still, or no, not a touchdown, but he had pretty good yards. But Mahomes just obviously this is his worst game. It's still not a bad game by any means on his part, but you go like 20-something out of 35. It's still not what you want to be at, but Chiefs will rebound from this.
I do want to hold that. There's a reason why we're looking down here. Indianapolis and Tennessee both picked up their first win. So they're now a combined 4 wins in the AFC South. That's the whole reason we were looking down there. But, yeah, just what a win for the Colts.
Yeah, the biggest thing I think for the Chiefs here, the more concerning than actual anything that way anybody play. I mean, in the end, it's one game.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are going to be just fine. But they need to figure out the locker room stuff. I mean, to have Mahomes and Eric Bieniemy yelling at each other on the sideline. Then you had former Chiefs players coming out and ripping on them. As an offensive coordinator, a big one in LaShawn McCoy was the biggest one I saw, but there's a couple of them. So there's something going on there. I mean, obviously, he hasn't got a head coaching job after interviewing for however many jobs the last couple of years, and everyone thought he'd be a lock for head coach and hasn't gotten it. So there's something in there right now that's causing that. And, again, not good to see Mahomes and him yelling at each other. Andy Reid had to step in. So that's the big thing Chiefs need to figure out of this game is make sure everything's cool and good in the locker room, or else it's going to carry over to the field.
Yeah. And then moving on to the next one, the real leader of the AFC is Miami. That's not a sentence I thought I'd be saying right now this year at 3-0. But here come the Dolphins with a 21-19 win over the Bills. This game had everything. We had great Tua moments, great Josh Allen moments. Kicking the punt directly into, the butt of guys. We had everything ridiculous happen in this game. But at the end of the day, Buffalo had 497 yards of offense. Miami had 212. The Bills had the ball for 40 minutes and 40 seconds.
And they
still lost by 2.
Well,
what a win for the Dolphins.
Allen puts up video game stats pretty much, and yet still is not enough to win that game. And they really shouldn't have gotten that safety.
I'm telling you, that's the only explanation for it. I'm trying to tell you guys, safety's bad luck. If you get a safety, you're going to lose the game. Just the way it works in the NFL.
There you go.
Just the way it works in
This is how this works. Safeties are bad.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into another game where a team got a safety and lost.
Yeah, there we go.
I mean, it's just the way it happens in the NFL.
You have 2/3 of possession and still lose. That is just mind-boggling.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Josh Allen throwing the ball 63 times, and his arm did not fall off, so that's always impressive. They got 2 through at 18. So, I mean, you got the perfect balance here, I guess is the best way to put it, of situations. But, I mean, Miami stepped up every single time. They absolutely had to make a stand. And, I mean, credit to the Dolphins. This was a game that I felt they could win, ride the momentum of the Ravens' comeback, and they were able to somehow pull it off.
Yeah, no. I mean, a great win for them. We'll see how they move on from here, but they'll face each other again later on in the year, and that game's another one to circle on the calendar. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it absolutely will be. The next one here, the Lions and the Vikings. This was a so close but so far away game for Detroit. They had so many opportunities to put this thing away, but at the end of the day, Minnesota comes back, scores 14 in the fourth quarter, gets a 28-24 win, and a big win for Minnesota, keeping everything steady so far.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most Lions loss ever.
Yes.
I mean, you're looking at it like, okay, they're jumping out of the Minnesota, then they go up 24-14. And it's like, okay, maybe this Lions team isn't going to be as bad as anybody was expecting this year. Obviously, they played the Eagles close in week 1, then they find a way to win on the road last week. So then it was like, okay, we'll see what they're able to do. Go up 2-1 here. They're expecting the 2-1 record here late in the game, and then all of a sudden you find a way to blow in the fourth quarter. Most Lions thing ever.
It's a very Lions thing to do. Obviously, Minnesota did a great job taking advantage of mistakes by Detroit and eventually getting the win. Obviously, getting the last-minute touchdown to go up by 4, and Lions could not recover from it. And just like Lions had every opportunity to win this game, and they didn't do it. So obviously, this hurts Detroit a lot because it's like you had your chance to go up. Get 2-1 for probably the first time in a long while since Stafford days, and just didn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, just like you guys said, it's the most Lions loss possible. That's really all there is to say about it. But I mean, you're so close if you're Detroit. You're almost there. I don't know if you somehow get like slowly, like we're down to like centimeters at this point to Detroit having a competent football team that can close out and win games. They have everything. Now just got to get that closing out part. Mm-hmm. But the next one we have the Ravens taking on the Patriots. Baltimore getting a 37-26 win over the Pats. And I mean, this was another big one here. We saw a lot of things, mainly 6 combined turnovers in this game, 4 for the Patriots. Just not what you're used to seeing from these two teams here. Mac Jones threw 3 interceptions. Then he gets injured. He'll be out a few weeks. So going to be a rough situation for the Pats.
I say for Lamar Jackson, this is a great bounce back for regards to your performance. He hasn't had the best of performances. I know they're 2-1, but still, it's like I'd say he's played his best game of the season so far. Mac Jones, if you take away his interceptions, they actually played well. Just those 3 interceptions are going to kill you. So it's like obviously Baltimore did everything they were supposed to do. Obviously, Lamar getting 5 total TDs. Just nothing you really say, but great performance by the Baltimore.
Well, this is the response I needed after blowing the game against Miami last week.
Mm-hmm.
Credit to Lamar Jackson coming out again. Another fantastic game. Just doing what he's been doing this season. And then Mark Andrews coming out, playing a fantastic game, helping them out when they needed it. Biggest thing for the Ravens here is they need to figure out the run game going forward. But outside of that, no, phenomenal bounce back. And New England's in a lot of trouble. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is about to be one of the rougher patches I can imagine for the Patriots. You look at their quarterback situation right now. You go to that depth chart. you're looking at Brian Hoyer being the starting quarterback,
There you go.
Man, he's
at
still in
least
the
for the
NFL.
moment. So this is going to be a not fun ride, I guess I could say, for Patriots fans. But looking at the next one here, the Bengals have won a game. The defending AFC champs have finally won a game. They beat the Jets 27-12, and all it took was, the Bengals remembering what their identity is. Joe Burrow goes out, has a good game, 23 for 36, 275, 3 TDs. And the Jets, they had opportunities in this game. They really did. They had a few fourth-quarter attempts where, fourth down, trying to get a conversion. On the Bengals side of the field, could not get it to go, but Joe Flacco still trying.
No, I think the big thing here for Cincinnati is it isn't like you went out and survived the game against a bad Jets team. Is you went out and did what you had to do. Like, you won the first 2 weeks of the season. Yeah. So you couldn't even tell. Like, if you took the records away, you couldn't even tell that they struggled the first 2 weeks. So I think that was the biggest thing from Cincinnati. Like you said, Kate, they got back to doing what they're going to be able to do with Joe Burrow, and they were able to throw the first 2 weeks out, and they said, let's go take care of business. And that's what they did. It wasn't a close one. They had it from the jump.
Yeah, and also just doing a great job protecting Burrow. That's just something they got to mainly keep focused on. And that's why it's like those linemen who were paid to protect him got to do it. And they did. Obviously, you got to hope this is enough of a rebound after the first 2 weeks to get momentum going. It might give them some momentum going in the next few games, but obviously it's the NFL. Anything can happen.
Yeah, but also when you force 4 turnovers, you should win the game.
You should.
When you keep the other team from scoring a touchdown, you should win the game. The Bengals did everything you should do and finally capitalized on it and got the win. Mm-hmm. The next one here, the Eagles taking on the Commanders. The Carson Wentz revenge game went about as well as you would expect if you are an Eagles fan, because the Eagles get a 24-8 win. Jalen Hurts, 340, 3 TDs. Doing his thing. This is what Jalen Hurts does, and he's not afraid to do it. Able to force the Commanders' turnover was the Eagles' defense. And look at that, 400 yards to 240. This was a flat-out domination, it looked like, on Philadelphia's part.
Eagles just did what they've been doing all 3 weeks, just kicking butt.
And they only needed a quarter to do it.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a weird season. The Eagles haven't scored a point in the second half in 2 straight weeks. The Eagles have yet to score a point in the fourth quarter. But I guess if you're going up getting 3 touchdown leads, you don't have to. But I don't know. It's been weird. It makes me – I'm not going to overreact to it, but it makes me a little concerned about that second half, not being able to score. And maybe they're just taking their foot off the gas that much. But, the defense went out 9 sacks. That's when they got it started there. But – I'll take it, obviously, but I'm you guys know how I am by now. I'm a very cautious, optimistic fan.
Yeah.
So I don't it's funny seeing a lot of the power rankings this week had the Eagles number 1, and I'm just like, that's way too high right now.
Listen. This is how you're supposed to celebrate. You're supposed to say Eagles are the greatest team ever. Never losing again. 17-0, absolutely happening. We'll invent more games. We'll go 25-0. Forget it. We're just gonna keep going. Also, our offense is so good, we don't need to score in the second half.
That's the problem. That's all I keep hearing. Like, all week so far, if you look at the Eagles' schedule, they're favored to win every single game. Like, if you go down, they're favored to win every single game this year. I'm like, just stop, please. Just take it week by week.
What are you talking about, Andrew? They're just favored to win every single game. You have to go undefeated now. The Football Power Index told me so.
It's just obviously that second quarter, offense just went off on the Commanders. Obviously, Jalen Hurts and company just doing what they're supposed to do, kicking butt. And obviously, you're supposed to do it against the Commanders. But obviously, I will understand that will be concerning depending on who you play if you don't score in the second half. But right now, just be, obviously, like you're saying, be semi-cautious about how things are, and hopefully they can fix that second half thing and just actually score more points, because they could easily do that. They just, for some reason, just didn't do it. And obviously, defense stuffed Washington, so you got to hope that defense continues to play well.
Yeah, and also, of course, because I know it's probably the next thing you're going to mention, Andrew, we got a safety for the Commanders.
For the losing team, we got a safety. I'm
losing
telling you.
team, got a safety.
That's just what happens. It's bad luck.
It once again happened. And
you didn't need a safety to lose that game.
Listen, the Eagles intentionally took a safety to ensure that a comeback would not happen.
It did ruin the shutout, though. That's one disappointing way to lose the shutout.
Yeah.
Because the Eagles had a goal line stand and took over on the 1-yard line, and then they got stuffed on a run.
Oklahoma did that one time. They were winning. It was 2008. They were playing Chattanooga, and they won like 57-2. I think Chattanooga blocked the last PAT of the game and ran it back for 2 points or something ridiculous. It was just okay, there's 5 minutes left. Come on, guys. I understand all our backups are in, but yeah, it's always sad seeing a shutout get lost when it's your own fault.
Yeah, score a touchdown.
Yeah, come on. And then the Saints and the Panthers, the next one here, and oh boy, the Saints coming off one game where they had a lot of turnovers. They followed up with another 3 turnover day. Panthers defense looked solid. They were able to continue just controlling the game. Panthers offense really didn't need to do a whole lot. When you get a 44-yard fumble return to start the game, just get a few Eddie Pinheiro field goals, and Carolina rides the wave, gets their first win of the year.
I'm not sure if I saw the stat right, but I think this is their first win in 10 games.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
So it's so they finally got another win under Matt Rule. Obviously, this could mean, hey, momentum might start shifting where Panthers can try to make a push for the playoff, but still got rest. Obviously, it's only week 3, so you got to move on to the next week. And Carolina needed this win badly. And if you're New Orleans, you got to figure out what to do because the Jameis Winston experience is not working.
I mean, it really isn't, but I just don't understand why in the world this keeps happening in the Saints. I mean, you figure you roll the dice enough on Winston, you're going to get one of these good games eventually. That's how it was, at least in Tampa Bay. But I don't know. Do we go back to the Taysom Hill experiment? What do you do here if you're New Orleans?
But you can't be surprised by it.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just too Jameis Winston. Everyone's acting surprised how much the Saints are turning the ball over. He threw the same amount of interceptions as he did touchdowns.
I think
it's just who he is.
It's just
it's not going to change at this point. And I think that's where it's going to continue to go.
To me, at least, I think, at least with Saints fans, it's more an expected, every other game is what they were kind of sold on. I don't know who sold them collectively on this. I don't know if it was, Tampa Bay fans. I don't know what this was. But the expectation was he's consistently inconsistent. Yeah. You're going to get 5 touchdowns one week, 5 interceptions the next week. And we're not seeing that. We're seeing more 3 picks, 3 picks, 3 picks, 3 picks, which that's always who Winston's been, to your point, Andrew. But I think they're used to seeing that explosiveness come with it. And now you're just getting all the downside, none of the upside.
It's statistically, if you take away interceptions, he had a great game.
But yeah, I mean, 25 for 41,
but those interceptions were kill you enough. Mayfield didn't really have to do anything. He just didn't even get 200 yards, but McCaffrey also ran over 100. So.
Also, Panthers appreciation. He gave Christian McCaffrey the ball 25 times. Thank you. Thank you for finally remembering who your best player on offense is, the guy who's always really good.
And this isn't necessarily a season-saving win because I don't know, but it could be a job-saving. I mean, we talked about last week. Their schedule coming up is brutal, so they didn't win that game. You were talking about possibly a very disappointing season, and we'll see if this can give them momentum. But
yeah, we will have to wait and see. But speaking of momentum and positive vibes just all around, Jacksonville just destroys the Chargers 38-10. Trevor Lawrence coming out 28-39, 262, 3 TDs. This was a game where everything just went right for Jacksonville. They were able to force turnovers. They controlled time of possession. They outgained the Chargers. This is what you're supposed to do when you play an injured star quarterback.
I mean, it's props to Herbert for trying to play while injured, but just obviously wasn't enough. And things were just wrong from the get-go. Just Jacksonville just jumped on them and 13-0, and then just kind of slowly expanded their lead, and then won 38-10. I mean, no one was expecting this from Jacksonville, at least to start their season. Obviously, we don't know how they'll be for the rest of the season, but they have a great start. I mean, when you're one of the better teams in the AFC right now, I was expecting to be 0-3 right now.
Yeah, bow down to your AFC South overlords, the Jags. What we all expected.
Shout out to Doug Peterson. He's got this team playing very well. I mean, this is a very concerning game for the Chargers defense. I'm not too concerned about their offense. You had a hurt Herbert trying to play through it. You had Keenan Allen. He was out for the game. So I'm not too concerned. The offense will bounce back. But there's the defense is where the concern comes in here if you're a Chargers fan. But no, credit to Jacksonville. They went out, did their job. Great start to the season. And good luck to Doug going back to Philly next week.
There you go. It should be fun. The next one here, the Rams and the Cardinals. This one was a back and forth of field goals for a long time. The entire second quarter, if you loved field goals, this was your quarter. You had a 20-12 Rams win in a game where Kyler Murray's having to throw the ball 58 times, still not able to get really anything going. Cardinals, once again, just suffocating themselves on offense at times. No touchdown. No touchdowns for Arizona. For all this offense you have, obviously you mentioned it earlier, Andrew, the loss of DeAndre Hopkins for the season. That's just been the storyline for Arizona, at least one of them. I mean, Hollywood Brown, he's a nice piece to have, but he's not the 100% answer here.
No.
And you see, everyone asks the question: how much difference does a receiver really make? How many wins do they really add to a team, and how much can they make a quarterback better? Well, this DeAndre Hopkins situation answers that question. You saw the struggles Arizona had when he was out with an injury to the end of last year, and then the start this year with the suspension. Their offense is very bad right now. James Conner isn't at the level they want him to be. He's obviously been a little banged up already, and the run game hurt him again on Sunday. But, no, DeAndre Hopkins is the reason why the Arizona Cardinals are struggling right now.
And it's like you figured with having A.J. Green after all his years in Cincinnati, you think that would do something. He hasn't really done much. Marquise Brown, obviously a good receiver, but not the answer you need. DeAndre Hopkins, like you said, like you both been saying, he's a reason why Cardinals were successful for that long period of time, and then he went down. And it's like Kyler Murray, it's like you think for throwing the ball over like 56 times, or 50, is that 56?
58.
Oh, 58.
Nearly had two quarterbacks throw for 60.
Numbers are too small for me to really see it, but it's like you think that throwing that many times, you at least get a touchdown out of that, and just no. Obviously shooting yourself in the foot, and you're having to settle for field goals, and that's just not going to win you the game.
No, it absolutely isn't. But, I mean, if you're the Rams, you really didn't have to do a whole lot offensively. Nope. You're able to just weather the storm with the 20 points you had.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us to our next one here. One of the more interesting games that happened this week. The Falcons beat the Seahawks 27-23 in a game where, I mean, they're driving. Seahawks are. You have an opportunity to win it, and Geno Smith throws a pick late in the game. Seahawks almost got their second win of the season. They're so close, but the Falcons able to get win number 1 in the Marcus Mariota era.
And obviously, Atlanta really just needed this win, and Seattle, pretty much screwed the pooch on this one for the most part. You had your shot, and you failed, and obviously that's kind of where you look at Seattle really needs a solid quarterback. Hopefully they can probably grab one in the draft next year, but obviously we'll see how the games will play this year. Both teams are obviously still trying to win, not trying to tank at all, but who knows how we'll go from here. Atlanta just needed a win to at least kind of boost their spirits.
Yeah, and also Cordell Patterson, 141, 17 carries, got his TD. A lot of things going right for the Falcons, and I mean, that's what you like to see. Their offense is doing fine. They just got to get the defensive end figured out. Mm-hmm. How many times have we said that before with Atlanta?
Plenty. Years now.
No, I
was going to say, any other thoughts?
No. I said, you got it. I mean, Cordell Patterson's the reason why they won this game. I mean, credit to him. I mean, he used to end up struggling in Minnesota after being picked high, and he's fixed his career, kind of changing positions a little bit, becoming that running back / receiver kind of type player there with Atlanta. So, no, this is a win for Cordell Patterson. Helped get the job done. The defense showed up.
Yep. Okay. I saw a thing with Aaron Judge in it, and it turns out it was just someone saying a thing. I thought he hit number 61 real quick, and I was like, oh, we got nope.
No,
gosh darn it. No, it was just like Aaron Rodgers has done a thing, and it was like, but it wasn't the home run. So never mind. I've been foiled by my phone only showing the first 5 words of a sentence. But the next one we have here, a classic defensive battle between two of the more big faces in the league. It's not what you expect from an Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady game to end 14-12. But what a game this was. If you're a fan of defense, it was absolutely there. Neither of our star running backs, Aaron Jones or Leonard Fournette, hit over 40 yards. This was a game that was decided by the defense. Each team with 2 turnovers. No one hitting over 315 yards. Green Bay, I mean, you give up the big drive at the end, but, man, that delay of game penalty on the 2-point conversion, Tampa Bay can't get it done.
Yeah, I mean, again, goes to show, what can receivers do? Buccaneers missing Mike Evans, missing Chris Godwin, missing Julio Jones. Packers obviously been struggling in the receiver corps for a while now, losing Adams, don't have Sammy Watkins. So what happens? turns into a defensive battle, and that's what you got here. And these two teams battled it out. Credit to Green Bay for finding a way to take this game. But, no, I mean, big win here for Green Bay and a huge conference game that could decide late in the year. When you look back on who wins the NFC, this game you could be looking at.
Probably. I have nothing to really add to this.
Alrighty. Well, the next one we have we have a lot to get to. Game of the year candidate: Denver 11, San Francisco 10. This game had everything. San Francisco turnovers.
That was so painful
Jimmy
to
G
watch.
running out of the end zone to avoid throwing a pick six, which he then did anyways, but thankfully he was already out of the end zone.
Oh.
It was one of the uglier games. Russell Wilson, 20 for 33, 184 here. It looked like just so many things were not going the Broncos' way. They still found a way to win 11-10, though. This is a game that everyone is probably going to want to forget. I don't think they're going to be able to forget it, though. What a memorable game to put on Sunday Night Football.
Everyone's gonna remind these teams of how they played. I
Yes.
mean, especially with here's
Never forget.
the thing is with the Niners and Garoppolo, it's like you at least expect better form of scoring. I understand Garoppolo's more of old school conservative type of play, but still it's just like Niners got to play. I don't know what's wrong with that offense overall. And then Denver has all that talent on both sides of the ball, and you don't really get much out of it besides 11 points. That's just that. I don't know one of it was off a safety, but still is like this game was so bad to watch. It's like I expected a lot more. As much as I'm enjoying Denver struggling a lot, it's still painful to watch that game. I was just like, there's no way these teams are this bad, but playing this bad.
What are you talking about? Denver struggling. They're 2-1. They're first
Do
in
not
the
say
AFC
you
West.
do not say you enjoy Denver struggling, because this is only Denver getting better. They have
Denver getting better.
They have
regressed every
they have
week.
They regressed by winning 2 straight. They lost the first game of the season, then won 2 straight.
They've played terrible every game.
If that's regressing, winning 2 games straight, please sign me up for that.
You score 11 and your $215 quarterback has done nothing with the ball.
Exactly why people who hate Denver or in that division should not be happy to see them struggling, because they're finding ways to win games. Wait till that offense gets right and that $200 million quarterback turns it around and actually starts playing well. This team's only going to take off. Like this defense is playing very well right now and keeping them in every game. So that defense is only going to get better as well. So once the offense figures it out, because they do have too many weapons on offense to continue to struggle. They got Jerry Jeudy. They got Cortland Sutton. They got Melvin Gordon. They got Williams at running back. This team is loaded with talent. And, yes, they're struggling. They have a new coach. They have a new quarterback. It's going to take some time. Them finding a way to win 2 of these games that they've looked absolutely terrible only shows why this team will make the playoffs. Like, I picked them to make the playoffs before the year, and this honestly makes me feel pretty good to see them win 2 games for that pick to be right.
Yeah, this is one of those. The good old a win is a win is a win. I mean, as long as
it's the NFL.
As long as you win, it doesn't matter how you do it. And to your point, Andrew, I think Denver, to me, I mean, I know I had them as a playoff team, but to me, they've kind of turned into this wild card mess where we're going to get one of these days where Denver finally shows up, and we're all going to be like, okay, now do that again. And to me, it seems like they're going to be one of those wacky teams this year, at least how I feel. We're going to have some of these weeks, this is going to happen. You're going to have to grind it out, pray that your defense can hold the other team to 10. But when Russell Wilson gets hot, oh boy, that is not going to be a fun time. It's got to start
happening soon.
It's got to happen at some point. And I mean, you got 17 games. It's going to happen at least once, I would think. Statistically, it's going to happen at least once.
But at least once is not necessarily going to be good enough, because if you can't continuously do that, at least around half your games, even if you make the playoffs, you're going to get smoked right out the gate.
I don't know. The 49ers have done it 3 years in a row where Jimmy G just kind of exists his way to riding a defense, but we'll have to see what Denver does, because, my goodness, this team they're funny to watch right now, but we'll have to see how that storyline progresses.
I'm telling you, don't sleep on Denver at this point. Like,
it's like statistically the offense overall has not been doing any better. Yes, the team's winning games, but that offense just doesn't. Looks like it's gotten worse every week. Like they were better in week 1 versus where they are now. That's basically why I'm enjoying it is because they're not doing. You always enjoy when your rivals are not doing as good, whether they're winning a game or not, because you're like, hey, as soon as we play them, we're going to smoke them. That's basically how you're going to end up looking at it.
I disagree with that.
Yes, I don't know. I was like, to me,
I'm looking at my rival and they're winning games. I'm
Yeah.
enjoying that. Like if I'm sitting here like, okay, Denver's got the same record as me. I can't enjoy them finding a way to win
Okay, I
games.
think we're missing the point of what I'm trying to say, but it's whatever. In my head, I'm thinking of something. Way I'm looking, it's like they're not gonna. They're gonna start losing games very soon.
But see, to me, that's what scares me, because if they start losing, they're going to start making adjustments. And to me, like that's how going back to college at
So
least.
you're saying they didn't make any adjustments after Seattle?
No, I'm saying they have made adjustments. That's why they're 2-0. They're fixing their defense.
2-0.
They're 2-0 since that Seattle game. They're 2-0 at home. Yes, it's been a painful 2-0, but they are indeed 2-0 at home. It's one of those things that if I see, my rival struggling, am I going to laugh? Yes. If they lose, am I going to laugh even harder? Yes. But what do I also know? They're not going to play that bad again. They're either going to play worse or they're going to get better. But I know they're not going to be that team the next week. And I think that's the same thing with Denver. Their day will come. We don't know when it'll be, but at some point they will show up. And that's going to be a scary day, or it's going to be a funny day, depending on who they do it against to an AFC West team. If they do it against the Chargers or the Raiders, that could be pretty funny. If they do it against, your Chiefs, if Russell Wilson shows up and randomly throws 4 touchdowns and, 300 yards, and they get into, a 35-28 shootout with Kansas City, that could theoretically happen. We just saw the Colts beat the Chiefs. Anything can happen in that division. And I mean, that's just football in general, though. But the final game, speaking of football can always be the most random sport, the Dallas Cowboys are 2-0 with Cooper Rush as their quarterback. 0-1 is with Dak Prescott. Cooper Rush, 21 for 31, 215 and a TD.
So is Cooper Rush the starting quarterback?
Cooper Rush should be treated as the greatest Dallas Cowboys quarterback. He's never lost. He's 3-0. Because, hey, they're 2-1 now. They're back in the division race, everybody. They have a divisional win over the Giants. They're able to get Daniel Jones to throw an interception that, on first glance, I thought it hit the ground, but after further review, at least for me, what a great interception to seal the game for Trevon Diggs. This was exactly what you needed if you're the Cowboys. You're able to get the run game going. You're able to get everything working. They look like the Cowboys people expect them to be.
Except you're thinking that it'd be Dak in there slinging it, but it's like
You'd
not
think,
happening.
but we have a more different approach
Well,
and not throw the ball 50 times a game.
They're here because of their defense. I mean, defense is keeping them in games.
That's also true.
I mean, you look at the game through the first 3 quarters. Cowboys couldn't score at all. Took an Elliott a rushing touchdown. Both teams struggled. I mean, the defenses came out, and that's why the Giants won their first 2 weeks too. I wasn't giving Daniel Jones any credit there. They held Tennessee to 20, and then they held Carolina to 16. And then here again, you hold Dallas to throughout most of that game without a touchdown. Then all of a sudden, the fourth quarter turned into a completely different game, points after points. So, no, I think both these defenses showed out, and credit to the Cowboys defense that they got them the win.
They absolutely did.
I will say that Cooper Rush passed the Lamb in the end zone. You're not going to get a better ball than that.
Yeah.
That was such a good pass.
Yeah, I'll say that's what Cooper Rush does. I mean, it's just funny to see it happen that Dak Prescott, goes down. Obviously, injuries are no joke, but Cooper Rush coming in and just salvaging the season so far, beating the Bengals and now the Giants. It's just, you can't write a better script than them having a potential another quarterback drama scenario. You just can't find anything funnier than that.
It's like, obviously, when Dak gets healthy, he'll be back as the starter. But it's like,
I don't know if Cooper Rush wins every game.
Hold on. But if they lose, they lose as soon as Dak's back, you're gonna have fans screaming, "Put Cooper back in," because they're actually winning with Cooper.
I feel like they would do it just because Jerry Jones is enough of a madman to do it. Like, you know how he is. That's what he would do. He already said it on one of the sports radio shows. Like, I don't know, if he keeps winning, we might have a situation on our hands. I just want the memes. I'm purely in this for. I want Cooper Rush as the starting QB of the Cowboys for the memes. It'd be one of the funniest things. It might be the best storyline of the year if we get that happening.
Yeah, I agree with that. I want Cooper Rush to be the starting quarterback too, because this makes the Cowboys worse.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
I'd rather face Cooper Rush twice a year than Dak Prescott.
Yeah, I know. There you go. It's amazing, isn't it? What a world to be alive in. Just what a time. But that will do it for us today. We thank you, as always, for tuning in. If you're here on Twitch watching us live, feel free to give us a follow or subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Guys Who Stare at Stats. If you're watching this video on YouTube, be sure to like the video, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, post the video anywhere of your social medias if you want to. Say anything in the comments. As long as you're not saying mean things or being offensive or hurting other people, we're good there. As always as well, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at NWTV7 to be notified of when we go live here on Twitch. And for Connor Gray, Andrew Santangelo, I'm Cade Kennedy. We will see you sometime later on this week. And until then, have a good one, everybody.